Okay, so you want to own a gym? Find a building, fill it with treadmills, watch the memberships roll in. That's the plan in your head, and it's not a bad plan. Walk into any gym on a weekday evening, and it looks like the easiest business in the world. Every treadmill is taken. The weight room is loud. There's a line at the front desk. You watch that scene and you think, this place must be printing money. More people, more memberships, more money. Simple. Here's the problem. You are looking at the 1 hour of the day that lies to you the most. The truth is that a gym is not really a fitness business. It is a subscription business that happens to have dumbbells in it. And the moment you understand that difference, everything about how a gym makes money and how it quietly loses money starts to make sense. Let's start with what it actually costs to get in the door, because the price tag is a lot more complicated than rent a space and buy some equipment. There isn't one type of gym. There are several, and each one is really a different business wearing the same tracksuit. At the bottom end, you have the budget gyms, the $10 to $25 a month chains that fill a building the size of a supermarket with thousands of members and make their money purely on volume. One location like this can hold 5,000 to 8,000 members and still only needs a skeleton staff to run it. Above that sits a traditional commercial gym, the kind with a weight floor, some cardio machines, and a schedule of group classes, usually charging somewhere between $40 and $70 a month. Above that, the luxury health clubs, which charge $150 a month or more and sell you less of a gym and more of a lifestyle, spa treatments, co-working lounges, the whole experience. Then there are the boutique studios, small rooms, sometimes under 3,000 square feet, built entirely around one style of class, charging $50 to $150 a month or selling packs of individual classes. And then the small brutal category, the one-on-one personal training studio, sometimes as small as 500 square feet, that doesn't sell memberships at all. It sells your time with a coach. Each of these is a different bet on the same underlying question. Do you make your money from a huge number of people paying a little or a small number of people paying a lot? That single decision shapes every other number in the business. Now, here's where the naive mental model starts to break down. You think the expensive part is the equipment? It isn't. The expensive part is turning an empty box of a building into something that can legally and safely hold sweating human bodies. A commercial landlord will usually ask for 3 to 6 months of rent up front just as a security deposit before you've done a single renovation. Then comes the build out. Rubber flooring that can absorb the impact of a drop barbell without cracking the concrete underneath costs $10,000 to $40,000. Locker rooms and showers need moisture-resistant materials and proper drainage plumbing. Another $10,000 to $50,000. Mirrors alone, floor to ceiling, can run $3,000 to $12,000 once installed. And then there's the part almost nobody budgets for correctly, air. A standard retail space is not built to handle a room full of people generating heat and moisture for hours at a time. You need industrial grade ventilation, and the amount of fresh air you're legally required to bring in isn't a guess, it's a formula. Building codes require roughly 20 cubic feet of fresh air per minute for every person exercising in the room, plus a small amount for the square footage itself. Run that formula on a 5,000-foot gym floor with 100 people on it at peak time, and you need over 2,000 cubic feet of fresh air pumped in every single minute. That's not a fan. That's a full HVAC system upgrade, and it can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 before you've sold a single membership. Add up the deposit, the renovation, the licenses, the insurance, the opening marketing push, and a cash reserve to survive the slow early months, and even a modest mid-sized commercial gym can require $300,000 to over $1 million just to unlock the front door. So far, so good. Now let's talk about what can go wrong. Equipment is the next trap, and it's a bigger one than people expect. A single commercial grade treadmill costs $2,000 to $8,000. A gym needs 6 to 12 of them just for a baseline cardio section. Selectorized strength machines run $1,000 to $5,000 each, and a real gym floor needs 12 to 20 of them. Add power racks, dumbbells, benches, and accessories, and the equipment bill alone for a mid-sized gym can land anywhere between $40,000 and $250,000. Here's the decision that trips people up. Do you buy the equipment outright or do you lease it? Buying feels safer. You own it. It's an asset. No monthly lease bill hanging over your head, but buying drains your cash reserves right when you need them most. In those first uncertain months before members show up in numbers and treadmills don't last forever. Heavy daily use wears a machine down in a way home use never would. Leasing sounds like the smart move. Small monthly payments keep your cash free. Upgrade the equipment every few years so it never looks dated. Sounds great? Here's the catch. Lease financing on equipment can carry an interest rate around 10% a year, which means over the life of the lease, you end up paying meaningfully more than the equipment was worth. And the lease doesn't care whether your gym is doing well. If membership dries up and you have to close the doors, the lease payments don't stop with you. They're a contractual obligation that follows you out the door. Neither option is wrong, but whichever one you pick, you've just locked in a large fixed cost that has to be paid every single month, regardless of how many people walk through your door that day. Now, location. This is the decision most first-time owners get wrong because they think a good location just means somewhere with a lot of people nearby. It's more specific than that. Roughly 80% of a gym's membership base comes from within a 10 to 15 minute drive or transit ride of the building. That's it. That's your entire addressable market. Not the city, not the metro area, a 10-minute radius. Inside that radius, the income level of the people living there has to match your pricing. A luxury club charging $150 a month cannot survive in a neighborhood built around a budget income base, no matter how nice the equipment is. And a high visibility storefront in a major city can cost anywhere from $25 to $120 per square foot per year in rent compared to $12 to $20 in a rural area. Pick the wrong side of that gap and you've committed to a rent bill that requires a membership base your neighborhood simply cannot supply. Now we get to the part of this business that actually explains everything else, the membership itself. Picture a coin flip, except instead of heads or tails, imagine every person who signs up for a gym falls into one of two futures. In one future, they show up 3 times a week, every week for a year. In the other future, they show up twice in January, feel good about themselves, and then never come back while still paying every month. Which of those two members is more valuable to the gym? It's the second one. And this is the single most important idea in the entire fitness business. So let's slow down and actually do the math. The person who comes 3 times a week uses hot water for showers. They put wear on the treadmill belt. They need towels laundered. They take up floor space during the exact hour when the gym is most crowded, which can annoy other members and push them toward canceling. Every visit costs the gym a small amount of real money and a small amount of real capacity. The person who signed up in January and never came back cost the gym almost nothing. No hot water, no towel, no wear on the equipment, no crowding. They are, in the language of economics, a customer whose cost of service is close to zero. While their monthly payment keeps arriving like clockwork, every dollar of that payment flows straight to the bottom line. Industry data consistently shows that around 2 out of every 3 gym members rarely or never use the gym they're paying for. Read that again. The majority of the revenue base of a typical low-cost gym is coming from people who are not exercising there. This is not an accident. It is the business model. Think about the building itself. A gym with 6,000 or more members could never physically fit even a fifth of those people on the floor at once. The fire code wouldn't allow it, and the equipment wouldn't be enough. A typical gym floor might be legally capped at somewhere around 200 to 300 people at a time. If even 10% of a 7,000 member gym showed up simultaneously, you'd have 700 people trying to fit into a room built for maybe 250. It would violate the fire code within minutes. So the gym isn't selling access to a room. It's selling a statistical bet that most of the people who buy a membership will not use it at the same time, and a large chunk of them won't use it at all. The building only has to be big enough for the fraction of members who actually show up, not the total number who pay. This is why gyms don't secretly want every member to become a daily regular. A gym full of daily regulars would need a much bigger, much more expensive building with much higher utility bills to serve the exact same number of paying customers. The forgotten membership, the one sitting unused in someone's bank statement, is quietly one of the most profitable customers a gym can have. There's a seasonal wrinkle to this whole picture that's worth walking through because it shapes the entire financial calendar of a gym. Roughly 12% of all annual gym signups happen in the single month of January, driven by New Year's resolutions. Gyms lean into this hard, discounted joining fees, low-cost trial offers, a burst of advertising spend concentrated into just a few weeks. That single month can hand an owner a large injection of upfront cash and a wave of new monthly billing. But the same wave that comes in fast goes out almost as fast. Around half of new members stop attending within 6 months of signing up. And of the people who joined specifically as a January resolution, up to 80% have quit showing up by the time summer arrives. February tends to be the highest risk month of all, the point where the initial burst of motivation fades before a real habit is formed. Experienced owners don't panic about this. They plan their entire cash flow around it, using the January surge to build a reserve that carries them through the quieter summer months when new signups slow down. The owners who get caught off guard are the ones who spend that January windfall as if it were a permanent ongoing level of revenue instead of the seasonal spike that it actually is. There's also a structural choice that sits underneath all of this, whether to build an independent gym from the ground up or buy into an established franchise. A franchise gives you an already known brand name, a proven layout, standardized software, and often better pricing on equipment through corporate purchasing deals. That's valuable, especially for a first-time owner, but it isn't free. Franchise agreements typically require an upfront franchise fee of $20,000 to $60,000, an ongoing royalty of 5% to 10% of gross revenue paid back to the parent company every month, and an additional contribution of around 2% of revenue into a shared national marketing fund. An independent owner keeps every dollar of profit the business generates. A franchise owner is permanently sharing a slice of the top line in exchange for the brand, recognition, and support system, which can be worth it, but only if the extra membership volume that brand name attracts is large enough to cover what you're handing back every month. Now, here's where the psychology becomes just as important as the math. Why do people keep paying for something they don't use? Part of it is optimism at the moment of signing up. The membership feels like a promise to a future version of yourself. Part of it is what economists call a commitment device. Paying for the gym is meant to be the thing that forces you to go, and part of it is pure inertia. Canceling requires admitting the plan didn't work. And for a monthly fee of $10 to $30, most people would rather quietly keep paying than confront it. The physical design of the gym reinforces this, whether members notice it or not. Clean, simple layouts with clear pathways reduce the sense of intimidation a new member feels walking in for the first time, which keeps them coming back long enough for the habit to either form or quietly fade. Mirrors placed around the strength area help people track their own progress, which can boost motivation. But too many mirrors in a beginner-friendly zone can backfire and increase self-consciousness instead. Lighting is chosen deliberately too. Weight rooms are often lit with harder, more directional light that creates visible muscle definition, while stretching and recovery areas use softer lighting to feel calmer. Even the music tempo is chosen with a purpose, since faster music has been shown to help people push through a workout with less perceived effort. None of this is decoration. It's all aimed at the same target, keeping a member emotionally attached to the gym for as long as possible, whether or not they're using it every week. And gyms know this, which is why the process of leaving a gym is almost never as easy as the process of joining one. Many membership contracts require you to cancel in writing, not by phone, not through an app, but in person at the club or through certified mail with a return receipt. Contracts often require 30 to 60 days of advance notice before the next billing cycle, which guarantees the gym collects at least one more month of dues, even after you've decided to leave. And when a credit card expires or a payment fails, that alone accounts for roughly 30% to 40% of all cancellations, which is why gyms run entire departments dedicated to chasing down failed payments before a member can drift away entirely. This friction has not gone unnoticed by regulators. The Federal Trade Commission tried to introduce a national rule requiring that canceling a subscription be just as easy as signing up for one. A federal appeals court struck that rule down on procedural grounds, and the agency has since restarted the process. Some cities have moved on their own. New York City, for example, introduced a local click-to-cancel rule with penalties of over $500 per violation for gyms that make canceling deliberately difficult. Keep this in mind because it tells you something important about the business you're considering. If a gym's survival depended on happy, engaged, frequently attending members, it wouldn't need to make canceling this hard. The fact that cancellation friction is such a core part of gym operations tells you the business already knows a large share of its revenue comes from people who wish they weren't paying. Before we get to what can go wrong, there's a second layer of hidden cost that catches almost every first-time gym owner off guard. And it has nothing to do with treadmills. It's the music. Playing background music in a commercial space is not the same as playing it in your living room. In the United States, any business playing music for its customers is legally required to pay for a public performance license. And there isn't just one organization to pay. There are several performing rights organizations, each representing different songwriters and publishers, and a gym typically needs to be licensed with more than one of them at the same time. The minimum annual fees for each of these licenses can run anywhere from around $200 to close to $600. And once you're paying all of them together, the combined bill for a single location can land somewhere between $1,300 and $4,000 a year. Skip this, and the risk isn't a small one. These licensing organizations send field investigators into gyms, bars, and retail spaces specifically to check for unlicensed music. Under federal copyright law, statutory damages for willful infringement can run from $750 per song all the way up to $30,000 per song, and as high as $150,000 per song if a court decides the infringement was intentional. A gym owner who assumes a personal streaming subscription is good enough for the sound system has quietly taken on a legal risk worth far more than the license fee would have ever cost. That's a small example, but it points at the bigger lesson of this entire business. Almost none of the real costs are the ones printed on the equipment catalog. They're the ones buried in a licensing agreement, a lease clause, or a maintenance contract that nobody reads carefully until something breaks. And plenty of things do break. Heavy daily use wears down treadmill belts, strength machine cables, and upholstery far faster than home use ever would. And mid-sized gyms typically budget somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000 a month just for ongoing equipment repair and replacement. Utility bills for a gym, running constant ventilation, bright lighting, and hot water for showers can run between $1,000 and $6,000 a month. None of these numbers are dramatic on their own. Stacked together, month after month, they quietly eat into the exact margin the owner was counting on. Now, let's talk about whether a gym built entirely on this quiet subscription model can actually survive. Because the honest answer is sometimes not, even at enormous scale. Meet Bally Total Fitness. At its peak, it was the largest health club chain in the United States, with locations across the country and a business model built on aggressive long-term membership contracts, often financed over several years, like a car loan. On paper, the model looked brilliant. Lock members into years of guaranteed payments and you've secured your revenue in advance. But how does the largest fitness chain in the country end up filing for bankruptcy, not once but twice, within the span of a single year? The answer isn't that people stopped wanting to work out. The answer is structural. The aggressive sales tactics and long-term financing contracts triggered consumer protection lawsuits and accounting investigations. The company had built its empire on debt and contractual promises rather than genuine, sustainable member value. And when the legal and financial pressure mounted, the whole structure gave way. Bally filed for bankruptcy, and again shortly after, before its assets were sold off piece by piece. A similar story played out with 24 Hour Fitness, once one of the largest gym chains in the country. It didn't collapse because people stopped exercising. It collapsed because it had taken on too much debt relative to its actual cash flow. And when that debt came due, scale alone wasn't enough to save it. Here's the structural observation, because that's really the point of both of these stories. Neither of these companies failed because nobody wanted to buy a gym membership. They failed because the math connecting fixed costs, rent, debt payments, equipment financing to actual reliable revenue broke down. A gym with thousands of members and full parking lots can still be one bad debt structure away from insolvency. The visible crowd on the gym floor tells you nothing about whether the underlying financial structure can hold. So how does a gym actually make money in plain mechanical terms once it's past all of this? The core engine is simple: monthly dues times number of members minus fixed costs. If a gym has fixed monthly operating costs, rent, payroll, equipment payments, utilities, insurance, software of around $30,000, and it charges an average of $89 a month per member, then it needs somewhere around 337 paying members just to break even. Below that number, the gym is losing money every month. Above it, and additional members are almost pure profit because, remember, the marginal cost of an inactive member is close to zero. That's the good news. Here's the volatility that comes right after it. New gyms typically don't reach that break-even membership count on day one. It can take 12 to 18 months of accumulating members before the facility crosses into profitability. And every one of those months burns through the working capital reserve the owner set aside before opening. If the pre-opening sales push is weak, or if a competitor opens nearby during that window, the runway can run out before the gym ever turns a profit. And membership itself isn't a stable, permanently growing number. The industry average for annual member churn, the percentage of members who cancel every year, sits around 30% to 40%. If a gym has 500 members and loses 5% of them every month, it has to acquire roughly 300 new members over the course of a year just to stay exactly where it started. That's not growth, that's running in place. This is where a second revenue stream becomes essential, and it's the one with genuinely strong economics. Personal training. A trainer working one-on-one can only train so many people, at a typical rate of around $80 per session, capped at roughly 25 sessions a week to avoid burning the trainer out. Over 50 working weeks a year, a single trainer working purely one-on-one tops out at around $100,000 in annual revenue. That's a hard ceiling. You cannot add more hours in a day. The way around that ceiling is training multiple people at once. A coach running a semi-private session with 4 clients, each paying $40, brings in $160 for that single hour, roughly double the rate of one-on-one work, while each client individually pays less than they would for private coaching. This is why so many gyms have shifted towards small group training formats. It breaks the one trainer, 1 hour, 1 client ceiling that limits pure personal training revenue. Of course, the gym doesn't keep all of that. Trainers on payroll typically take a commission of 30% to 50% of what they bring in. If a session bills at $75 and the trainer takes half, the gym keeps $37.50 to cover its equipment, its space, and its profit margin. Still, across a full roster of clients, personal training tends to be far more profitable per hour than a basic membership ever could be. One dedicated personal training client can be worth dozens of members who barely use their card. Now, let's put all of this together and look at what actually happens over a full year, because this is where the two very different versions of this business reveal themselves. In the optimistic scenario, you've picked the right neighborhood, hit your break-even membership count on schedule, kept churn on the low end of normal, and built a healthy personal training program alongside your base of members. Under those conditions, a mid-sized independent gym can generate somewhere between $500,000 and $1.5 million a year in revenue, with a net profit margin of 10% to 20%. That can translate to an owner take-home somewhere between $70,000 and $180,000 a year. A genuinely solid outcome for the work and capital involved. In the realistic scenario, 2 or 3 things go wrong that aren't exotic at all. They're the normal risk of this exact business. Churn runs at the high end of normal instead of the low end. A new budget chain opens a couple miles away and pulls price-sensitive members away with a cheaper monthly rate. Equipment starts needing more frequent repairs than expected, adding another $1,000 to $3,000 a month to overhead. Under those conditions, that same gym can slide from a comfortable double-digit profit margin into a single-digit margin or into an outright loss during a slow season. Even while the parking lot outside still looks reasonably full most evenings, the difference between those two outcomes in a single mid-sized gym can be well over $100,000 in a single year. And almost none of that swing shows up as a dramatic visible event. No fire, no scandal, just a slightly higher cancellation rate, a slightly slower membership ramp, and a slightly heavier repair bill compounding quietly month after month until the number at the bottom of the spreadsheet looks nothing like the plan. So if you do decide to open a gym, remember the one thing that actually determines whether you succeed. It was never really about how many people you can get to sign up. It's about how well you can survive on the people who stop showing up.